Hi, this is Glenn from SimAbility, and it is October 2016, and this is a product GT ring system for Thrustmaster wheels. This is a product we hope to have available in sometime in 2017, probably middle of the year. We call it the ring system because we do have two rings. We have a pull ring and a push ring. The pull ring can either be the gas or it can be the brake. Same with the push ring, gas or brake. You can switch them. Along with that, you can also switch the spring tensions so that you can have your stiffer spring on the brake, softer spring on the gas. The travel of the rings is adjustable. On the paddle shifters, we retain the functionality of the paddle shifters, but this is it. And the hand controls connect through a coiled cord. So when the wheel calibrates, it stays out of the way. So I'm going to go ahead and pull this off the base, and I'll go over some of the features. Okay, as I mentioned, the rings are very adjustable. The pull ring itself, you can see there is a slider here. The ring, static position of the ring can be moved a little bit farther back. So if you have really large hands, you can move it quite a ways back, or if you have smaller hands, you can move it a lot closer to the wheel. So in this particular configuration, I can actually keep my hand on the wheel, fully operate the ring with my other hand, and it doesn't get in the way of my right hand. Along with that, the actual travel of the ring is adjustable. These blocks right here can be changed out. I don't remember the exact travel on this. This is quite a bit. Some people may prefer a little less travel. You can actually replace these plastic stoppers and adjust that. Okay, so though, along with that, you can also change the springs. The springs are in here. You can actually pop them out and put in a different tension spring. And also with our SimAbility, we use what we call a progressive brake rubber on our brake. And what that's going to do is gives you a feel of kind of a hydraulic feel. It gives you a better feel of where your threshold braking is. And that's an adjustable knob right here. And if you turn that knob down, hopefully we can get that in the camera, but that arm hits that rubber and it adds significant resistance at that particular spot, and that is adjustable. So you can set where that is so you can match it to your threshold braking. Now, this is something that if you decide to change from having your pull ring be the brake and having your push ring be the brake, you're going to need to move this. What you need to do then is take two screws out. This whole assembly comes out of this plate, and then you also need to take this arm off, and you can go ahead and put it on the push ring, and it will go right in there. The arm will go in there, and then your adjuster will be up here, and your push ring will become your brake, and you'll have the progressive rubber on that. Or if you don't like the progressive rubber, just take it off entirely. So going to the other ring, the push ring, also has quite a bit of adjustability. And let's see if we can get that in there. You can see I've got some sliders on here, so you can move the ring, the static position of the ring, in or out. Obviously you want to keep it far enough away from the wheel that it doesn't hit the wheel. At the same time, the buttons on this particular wheel, this is the PlayStation wheel, the buttons are mostly functional through the ring. You do lose the functionality of these two buttons. Depends on the type of wheel you set this up on. While we're on that subject, you can put this system on the Alcantara, the leather, the PlayStation, or the Ferrari wheels. It works on all of them. All right, for the gas and brake sensors, we're using Hall effect sensors inside of these boxes here, and they're operated by a lever. And that Hall effect sensor, what that is just it's using a magnetic field to send a 5-volt signal back to the Thrustmaster wheel. It emulates the Thrustmaster potentiometers, so this will work with consoles. It'll look just like Thrustmaster pedals when you plug it into a console. With a PC, obviously, it'll work with a PC as well. The signal itself is going to go through a coiled cord into a connector box. I'll show the connector box in a little bit. The coiled cord is replaceable. Remove these two screws, and there is a connector in here, so if for some reason your coiled cord gets damaged, you can replace it. This ring system does come with aftermarket paddle shifters because the stock Thrustmaster paddles, they're too large. They get in the way of the ring. So I provide some smaller shift paddles. They're also adjustable. These collars in here, you can change the collars to move them in or out. Common question I get is how do I operate the paddle shifters with the ring? It's actually not that hard. For the gas, you can get around the ring, and if you're using the pull ring as a throttle, it's pretty easy. If you're braking, you can get to the brake paddle, or the downshift pedal I should say, fairly easily. If you're using the ring for braking, same thing. If you want to upshift, you can get to the ring here, but when you get on the brakes, you can still operate this paddle. So it's really your preference where you adjust the ring, where you adjust the paddles. You could also make your own paddles. They're fairly simple to replace the paddles. A lot of very customizable. And that was really one of the biggest goals of this product, is to make it customizable, because nobody wants the same thing. But that is the paddle shifters. So now we'll move on to the connector box. All right, so I mentioned the connector box earlier. And really all the connector box does is it just allows you a place to connect your paddles. You'll just plug them into the connector box. This allows you to change wheels. So maybe if you have an F1 wheel with paddles or a different type of paddles, you just unplug it, plug your other wheel in, and you're ready to go. Also, on the back of the connector box, this cable, this is new for us. The cable going from the connector box to the Thrustmaster wheel now is replaceable, so if it gets damaged, you can replace it. Also too, you'll notice the connector on this cable is the stock Thrustmaster connector. It's the same thing you plug your pedals in. If you have the pedals, that's all you're doing. You're taking the connector box and you're plugging it in where the Thrustmaster pedals go. And this is all to emulate the stock pedals, so console gaming won't be interrupted. You don't have to reconfigure anything. Along with that, there's a fitting here where you can add a clutch. We don't make a clutch right now, but in the future we do plan to make a clutch that goes on an H shifter or sequential shifter, and you'd be able to just plug that in here and it would show up where the clutch shows up. You could even plug a handbrake in here and it will see it. Inside the box, you may notice there's an extra hole here. This is actually a USB access port, and it's normally covered. I have the cover off right now. That is so for PC gamers, you may want to use an aftermarket card, such as a DSD, Derek Spears controller card. You can actually put that in our box and screw that down. And to connect the pedals, all you would do is you just simply unplug them. And then you would plug them into the DSD controller. This should also work with a Bodner board. I don't actually have one here, but if you're interested in that, let me know, and I can make a connector box for your Bodner controller card. And while we're on the subject, this is where you would actually switch the gas and brake. So if you want to switch the rings, maybe you want to put the brake on the front ring, the push ring, then you would just go into your box and you would just swap the connectors for the gas and brake. That way your console doesn't get confused. Your console knows then which is your gas and which is your brake. And let me go ahead and pull this card out of here. But that is our connector box, and that's really all it does. All right, these are not the installation instructions. This is just a demo of what's involved in installing the GT ring system. I'm going to put it on a PlayStation wheel right now. In order to do it, what you need to do is take your stock wheel, remove these 3 screws. That allows you to pull the threaded adapter off. And what you're also going to need to do on the PlayStation wheel, you can't get to the plug, so you need to remove, I think it's 6 or 8 screws, and this whole back plate assembly comes off. Then you can unplug your cable, and at the same time, while you have this back plate off, you're going to want to replace the stock Thrustmaster shift paddles with the aftermarket SimAbility shift paddles. Once you have that, you're going to put in this aftermarket extender cable. You're going to plug that in. You're going to put all this back together, and then you're going to set it aside. Then you're going to take your threaded adapter with the stock cable on it, and you're going to, and I'll use a can here as an example, you're just going to stick it back on the back of the wheel. In fact, I can use this one. And you'll just put it pops right in, and it goes on the back of your GT ring assembly. And then I do provide the screws. Okay, once you get your threaded adapter on there, just tighten the 3 screws, and then we're going to put what's called the front puck on. And we take this piece, and it's keyed, and so you're just going to slide it in there. Be sure to pull your cable out so it's accessible. And then you're going to go ahead and put the screws in the side. I'll go ahead and put these in. Okay. While you're putting the screws in the side, you'll put the sensor and spring mount on there, and you'll just run the 2 screws that hold that in place. Okay, so now we've got our screws in holding the wheel side puck, and then we can go ahead and put our spring. You'll have a couple different springs. Choose your tension, and you'll just simply pop it in there. Okay, now we're going to put, don't have a name for these, but we're going to put those in the front puck. And now we're ready to put our wheel on. Okay, now I mentioned earlier that we have an aftermarket extension cable. We only need to extend the wire a couple inches. This I think is 4 inches. Sorry, I talk US. But right now the only connector we have is actually the wider connector for the PlayStation rim. I'm actually trying to find connectors for the Alcantara and the leather wheels. I'm not sure yet what the Ferrari wheel uses. If I can find those extension cables and the proper connectors, the process will be the same for those. As of right now though, if you do have one of those wheels, what you do have to do is cut and extend the stock cable. Again, this is October 2016, so hopefully by 2017 we'll have a cable for that. But what we're going to do is we'll go ahead and we'll just plug it in. And then we put it in there, and we'll go ahead and just put the rim on. Okay, so you go ahead and just set this the wheel on. It uses the stock keying, so it stays lined up. And I do provide aftermarket screws. You'll just drop those in, tighten those 3 down, and then once you have that, you're going to put your front ring back on, and then 2 screws hold that ring on. You can adjust the height the way you want it, and that's it for the installation. It's I would call it fairly easy. It might take you maybe an hour. But then it's installed and ready to go.